This episode of the Model 3 Owners Club podcast is brought to you by Duliban Insurance. If you live in Ontario, Canada, and are looking for the best price and coverage on your Tesla, give Duliban a call at 1-855-385-4226 or visit our website at dulibaninsurance.com/Tesla. Well, hello everyone. It's time for another edition of the Model 3 Owners Club podcast. I'm your host, Trevor Page. Sorry, we're having a little bit of fun here before the show before we got in, so if you hear us laughing a little bit, you'll understand why. Anyhow, so this is the show where we talk about all things Tesla and Model 3, of course, and of course the points don't matter. Joining us tonight, as usual, is our usual cadre of guests. We have Michael Bodner from Florida. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Trev. Thanks for having me.
Great. Thanks for joining us again, as usual. Also joining us is Eric Camacho out of Florida. How you doing there, Eric?
Doing well. Hello, everybody.
Good, thank you. And last but not least, Mr. Ian Pavelko out of Montreal. How you doing there, buddy?
I'm doing very well. Bonsoir tout le monde.
Awesome. Well, we got some stuff to talk about tonight, and I want to start with the leading story. Mr. Bodner beat all of us, and he had a chance to test drive a performance Model 3. Oh, and I'm sure that's going to make Ian very, very jealous.
Can you not see the color coming through your screen right now?
Green with envy. I'm wearing my Tesla shirt tonight. So, Michael, why don't you jump in here a little bit and tell us about your experience?
Sure, absolutely. So, 2 weekends ago, I drove past the mall, and or maybe it was a weekend ago. Whatever, that part doesn't matter. I drive past the mall, and there's a white-on-white Model 3 sitting in the parking lot, and I thought, that's got to be something. Get a little closer. I see some red brakes and ran into the mall and went right into the Tesla store. And I said, is that a test drive performance Model 3? They said, yes, it is. Do you want to go check it out? I said, yes. And then they said, oh, someone's got a scheduled test drive. And boom, the car was gone. And I left. And that was it. So then we went back and had a day off and took a look at the car again, got to drive it around. And I have to say, this car is simply amazing. Just from driving the rear-wheel drive Model 3, getting the feeling of the instant torque, driving my dad's Model S75, same effect. It's nothing in comparison to stepping on the pedal in the performance car. If anyone saw my video, I got on the highway with it. I didn't do any 0 to 60 runs. We've seen plenty of those. Slowed it down to about 45, and I thought, I've got plenty of room in front of me. Let's just gun it and see how fast this thing can go. And it couldn't be more than a split second before I was like right up on the bumper of the car in front of me and had to use the regen and slow down and switch lanes. I mean, literally the only way I can describe this is it felt like somebody was stepping on my chest, pushing me back into the seat, and I just loved it. And I wish I could get one. It'd be a bad investment on my part to sell my 6-month-old Model 3 and jump into a car that's another, I think it's like $19,000 more US. But for anyone who hasn't ordered one yet or anyone who's on the fence, I mean, by all means, take a test drive. There's no one in the Tesla store, if there's one in your area, that isn't going to want to jump in the car with you for 30 minutes and drive the thing around. It's a blast. Jump in it, and I assume you'll be sold on it. I'm sure the dual motor is going to feel plenty powerful as well. It picks up another second 0 to 60 over the rear-wheel drive car. But I just can't say enough good things. And the car was white on white, just like Trev's Model X. those white seats, there's something about them. They're definitely softer than the black seats. I mean, they just feel like butter.
I told you.
Seats are amazing. The white trim piece, I was worried that maybe that would pick up the sun and reflect. I had an issue with the carbon fiber vinyl I tried. No issues. It's kind of got a matte finish enough that there's no sun. I mean, it's the perfect car. I don't know what else to say.
Other than what Will Smith said in Independence Day, I gotta get me one of these.
Exactly.
Ryan was also telling me that the finish on the door, like the inserts on the door, are the same material as the seats. It's not Alcantara, of course, so we know that.
Yep,
wow,
that's just like the seats.
Yeah. I did watch your video, and I have a question for you. The big question, of course. What did your wife think of it? Because I saw her driving the car. What was her opinion?
So she's typically a slower driver, and I forced her. We got on the highway, and I said, "You just got to step on it," and she got the Tesla grin. So we're back on track for possibly a dual motor white on white for her. We'll see. But she loved it.
She loves the Stormtrooper look, right?
Maybe there's a chance that the white seats are a novelty. I promised her that they weren't. But just getting inside it and seeing it, they're absolutely not.
That's awesome.
As obviously you already know.
No, yeah, the seats are not a big deal. I mean, yeah, people make too much noise about the seats, and well, that's good to hear. Ian, did you have any questions? For Michael, since he got a chance to drive this thing?
No, I'm just going to continue to watch the Tesla Tunity YouTube over and over again and drool and despair, and it's pretty much where I'm at with it. No, it was awesome to watch. Like we were saying just before we started recording, I particularly loved the back seat shot where Michael's wife is trying to hold the camera steady and it just keeps shooting up towards the glass roof, I think that kind of tells the story, because as you yourself, I think at one point mentioned in the video, it's really hard to convey like delta of speed, like the fact the car goes from 40 to 70 miles an hour in like under 2 seconds. It just happens instantaneously, and you can't really relate that. But when you see what happens to the bodies, like when your head keeps going bang into the headrest and the camera keeps going up, that's when you realize, oh, yeah, there's something else going on here. We're sort of bending physics slightly.
I have a question. Michael, did you happen to notice if there was any motor whine coming out of the front of the car that sounded different from yours?
I honestly have to say I don't think you could hear anything over the giggling and just general silliness of noise.
Stupid question.
We made everything we stepped on the pedal. I don't know. I didn't listen closely enough to that. I will say the car was so shockingly powerful for me. Anyone who's used to power like that, maybe this doesn't happen to you, but I certainly don't drive a car that's that fast. I can't even tell when I watch back my video at what point I lifted my foot and started easing off the throttle, because I was just, wow, it was so fast so quickly. Yeah, here's one big takeaway I have from it. The car's got the 20-inch wheels that I drove. Obviously, the lowered suspension. It felt more comfortable on city roads than my car with the 19s and the standard Model 3 suspension. So
yeah, you mentioned that, and that's really impressive.
To have the mix of a track monster and a car that's really comfortable around town on 20-inch wheels with low-profile tires, and seriously, I can't say enough. Like my wife said, you have to say something negative about the video. You can't just be all positives all the time. I said, I can't think of anything. I think it's the perfect car.
Other than the price.
Even though, the price, it comes in basically loaded right at the base price of a Model S. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's incredible.
That's an incredible tough sell for a lot of people. I think there's a lot of people out there looking at a base base Model S and looking at Performance Model 3 and just trying to make that decision. And I think, you're going to get a certain amount of people that are going to look at the car and go, well, I'll forgo the cargo and I'll just get the Performance Model 3 and live with the smaller size. And then you got some other people who says cargo is more important. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. Well, I'm glad to hear that it went well. The rest of the world, of course, we're waiting for our opportunity to test drive one of these things, and some of us have to take delivery.
Yes!
So,
And I'll add one more piece. I don't know if this is unique or if it's a new thing or if it's coming soon. After the drive, I was asked if I wanted to have it for a night.
Oh,
I, of course, said
really?
yes. So they do overnight with the Model 3 performance car. I guess it doesn't take it away from test drives or from the showroom area, because it's basically when the store closes to when the store opens the next morning. So it's really no big deal. But yeah, I'll have it overnight next weekend.
Oh, excellent. Well, please give us a follow-up on that, because it'd be very interesting to see, if anything changes about your opinion and so on and so forth about the car. So, yeah.
I'll
So is that when you're gonna
probably skip town. Yeah.
We're gonna go for a ride a night or two?
I think we can make something like that happen.
Yeah, you guys need to make that happen.
That's definitely an all-nighter night.
Where were you guys at? Nowhere. Just driving around the
Put 800
neighborhood.
miles on the car in one night.
That's right.
One
be like
last question on Michael is, what's the regen feel like to you compared to the rear-wheel drive? There's been a lot of debate about that, and I know I've read a lot of impressions, but what was your take on it as somebody who's got a lot of seat time in the LR?
So immediately I noticed, even just going through the parking lot, getting out to the main roads, it's definitely stronger.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen some, I don't want to call it complaints, but people who wish the regen was stronger on my car. I guess I've gotten so used to it now, I barely ever step on the brake pedal. I've got it timed pretty well to know when to start easing off the throttle and slowing down. But the performance car definitely had stronger regen. Obviously, I didn't drive a regular dual motor, so I don't know if those are also much stronger, just having the additional motor, but definitely stronger.
The theory behind it, if I've got all the numbers right, is when both cars are in their standard mode, I don't think there would be any significant difference. What's different about the P3D is when you put it in track mode, the maximum deceleration from regen goes from 0.2 to 0.3 Gs. So I think if you hit it track mode, I think you'd really feel it regenning hard. But a regular dual and a performance should regen about the same otherwise, if I got it right.
That makes sense. I also looked through every single page in the menu, and I could not find track mode. I don't know if that's disabled on a test drive car.
Good for you for checking. No, that's the first thing I would have asked. Where's the button? Where's the button?
Well, glad to hear that. Well, let's move on. The next little talking point tonight is Model 3 production, according to the Bloomberg VIN tracker, is going to be crossing 100K very soon. They're putting at production at approximately just over 68,000 cars. Model 3 VINs, which is a Twitter account, tweets NHTSA registrations once in a while. They just put out a tweet today saying they registered 667 new Model 3 VINs. Approximately 4% of them are estimated to be dual motor. The highest VIN is 99,145. So there's always a discrepancy between cars produced, the VIN numbers. There's always some discrepancies and so on and so forth. But it's showing that it looks like Tesla has really significantly hit this 5,000 mark, and they're on track for 6,000 sometime later this month. And there was another article, I think, that was put out by an analyst who visited the Tesla factory recently, and said that they are definitely seem to be on track to hit somewhere around the vicinity of 8,000 cars with very little more capital expenditure. Any thoughts on this? I mean, it's looking really good. There's never any silence from Eric. Come on, buddy.
Oh, it's been a long day. So I think, what's interesting about the numbers is more so that, like you said, first we'll discuss the variants for a second, but when you're looking at how quickly production's ramped up, I mean, Elon said a long time ago about the S curve and explaining that the timing of the S curve is really going to be the major turning point in terms of how the production would increase. And we're actually now seeing that curve exponentially rocket up very quickly. And now when you're adding in the performance vehicle, you're adding in the dual motor production, and in their own right, they're also going to begin to increase. Collectively, we're seeing a great amount of cars being produced rather quickly. I mean, in that same Bloomberg article, they indicate that they're estimating about 5,300 cars are being produced per week, just Model 3 alone. So it should be, hopefully, not long before we're seeing numbers approach, if not exceed, 6,000 per week. Maybe even by year's end for the vehicle. And that's without even the standard range battery even produced yet. So I think it's a testament to just how hard the teams are working at the factory, between the battery side in Nevada and the Fremont factory with production lines. And it's starting to show. And I think a lot of people who are still waiting to pull the trigger on one of their cars are going to be able to get there sooner than they think.
Is there any opinions between you guys as thinking that if the production keeps going with this ramp, that we may see the base battery arrive a little bit sooner than maybe they've been estimating? Because they're still showing, early 2019 for that. My hopes is that, if this continues, that we may see standard battery a little bit sooner.
I mean, deliveries, according to the website for the online configurator, suggests that the vehicles will begin deliveries in 5 to 8 months. So if deliveries, let's say it is on the lower end of that figure, if it's closer to 5 months, then orders would actually start sometime later this year. Mm-hmm. So again, that's certainly speculation at this point, but we've seen Tesla sort of project out long and then produce earlier. So it's better to overestimate than underdeliver.
I think it still shows that Tesla has a very solid order book for what they're currently making right now. If they showed any kind of sag in the orders, they would certainly consider moving at that point. But it looks like, there's no shortage of people wanting these cars as soon as possible. Profitability, of course, is important, and will be interesting to see what happens when the third quarter numbers finally roll in a few months' time. But I'm still seeing lots of Model 3s around here, and they're still being delivered. So it's all good, promising information on that point. Well, let's move on. Some really good news just came out, of course. Model 3 is starting to make its appearance down under. So those of you who are in Australia and New Zealand might have received an invitation from Tesla. They're going to be displaying a left-hand drive version of the Model 3. No right-hand drive cars yet. They will be on display at the Martin Place Tesla store in Sydney's CBD. Another one will be Melbourne's Chadstone store and Brisbane's main store in Fortitude Valley. This comes from an article in Electric. They did show, I think it was last month, they brought a Model 3 to Europe, and they started doing a little bit of a tour there, so people had a chance to see that car firsthand. So for those of you who have a reservation in Australia that live close by in those areas, please check your account, make an appointment. I believe one of them, and I don't have it in front of me, but it looks like it may happen as soon as this weekend, or around the 25th, so you'll be able to go down and check that out. Expect long lines, much like when they started putting them in Florida back earlier this year. There were lines outside the store, and expect them to probably do what they did then, which was about a 2-minute time inside the car So in and out type of thing. So that's always good news. I'm sure a lot of people of Australia have been waiting a long time to see this car. Next one. I don't know how much we want to get into this, but Tesla has Elon has since published another article on Tesla's website called Taking Tesla Private. And he basically delineates a little bit more of his thoughts on what the changes were. So I'm just going to read a couple of little bits here from the article that he posted. And basically, you can follow this on Tesla's website. So if you go to tesla.com/blog, you'll be able to read this. So what Elon basically writes here is, on August 2nd, I notified the Tesla board that in my personal capacity, I want to take Tesla private at $420 per share. This was a 20% premium over the approximately $350 then current share price, which already reflected a 16% increase in the price since just prior to announcing Q2 earnings on August 1st. My proposal was based on using a structure where any existing shareholder to wish to remain as a shareholder, in a private Tesla could do so, with the $420 per share buyout used only for shareholders that preferred that option. After an initial meeting with the board's outside directors to discuss my proposal, I did not participate, nor did his brother Kimball. A full board meeting was held. During that meeting, I told the board about the funding discussions that had taken place, more on that below, and I explained why this could be in Tesla's long-term best interest. At the end of that meeting, it was agreed to that as a next step, I would reach out to some of Tesla's largest shareholders. Our largest investors have been extremely supportive of Tesla over the years, and understanding whether they had the ability to desire to remain as shareholders in a private Tesla is of critical importance to me. They are the ones who believed in Tesla when no one else did, and they are the ones most believe, in our future. I told the board that I would report back after I had all these discussions. So anyways, I won't read too much more of that, but I want to discuss this situation here because, of course, some information has come to light since then that part of the potential funders, including Elon himself, is the Saudi Sovereign Fund, which have been looking to diversify their holdings, other than just oil, of course. They've been looking at diversifying and stuff. So I find it interesting. One thing that I have noticed with the Saudis on a technology front is they're very supportive of new technologies. Teslas are extremely popular over there. There is a great YouTube channel called Fully Charged, and if you look at Robert Llewellyn's past history a little bit, he did go to Dubai and did a great video on everything that's going on over there. And Tesla's growing like gangbusters of it. They love technology. So aside from the fact that about the Saudi situation, that there's been a lot of discussion, of course, on Twitter about the whole situation. And I tried to get another YouTuber or another podcast member to come on the show, and he just wasn't prepared to do it quite yet. We may get him in the future, who's an expert on all things financial and stuff. So if I get that nailed down, I'll announce it a little bit later. But it's interesting to see, this direction that they're going. And we didn't really talk about it all that much on the last podcast, but maybe we can dive into it maybe a little bit more tonight. So I'd like for you guys to jump in here and give me your 2 cents on this whole situation, if you could.
I'll kick things off here. So first, I think and this is sort of a bit of humor, I think the 420 price is pretty funny. That being said, there's been a lot of what I consider hubbalaboo about what Tesla is doing here between the stock prices and everything else. To me, and we talked about this a little bit in the last show, which is anything that's going to sort of help get the shorts folks out of the conversation piece, out of the limelight, is a good thing, because it will at least allow the company to focus on its mission to bring sustainability to the world. So that's the first part. The second thing is, ideally, it's not going to greatly change how Tesla operates. You know, when a company goes public, when they have their initial public offering, it's ideally to raise funds, to get money. And then so at some point, once you've had the capital, you can either stay public or you can choose to go back to being private. This is not unheard of. Other companies have done it. But I think for people who look at this and go, well, it's, you know, it's just more ammunition for the news. It's this, that, and the other. Like, it's all just complete nonsense. So you know, with Elon putting that blog out earlier this week, to sort of, I think it was on Monday, you know, to sort of explain to folks both his mindset at the time that he tweeted it, and to sort of help those who were kind of unsure what's going to happen next, that at least allows people to have, oh, okay, now I understand. It's really out there, and it's very clearly worded. And like you said, you know, Trev, if you want to read it, go on the site and read it. It's really a good explanation about what's actually happening, and I think it's just gonna, you know, to me, the stockholders are going to say, okay, sure. I mean, there are going to be some that are going to say, nah, I'm not all for it. That's fine. You can sell your shares. I'm sure someone's going to want to buy it from you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. You know, I'm supportive of anything Tesla wants to do. I just hope they don't do it necessarily out of spite. And when I say spite, I'm talking about all the shorting that's going on. Yes, it's annoying. It detracts from the situation. We've had this conversation, of course, before. The employees just want to go to work, do their best job, and not have to be distracted by all this stuff. You know, I don't... In some ways, I believe that Elon does have a little bit of a vindictive stream in him. But aside from that, his number one concern, from what I've always seen over the years of watching what he does, is that he cares about what he's doing. He cares about the companies first. I mean, who else would put all of his fortune into a dying company back in 2008? You know, he was borrowing money from friends and family to, you know, to support himself while, you know, he's pouring all of his money into the company. So the fact that he puts more his money where his mouth is leads me to believe he's trying to do the right thing here. Now, of course, there's a lot of discussion as to whether the Saudis would be a good fit for Tesla in terms of ownership. How much influence would they have? Who knows? This is all stuff that has to be worked out. Of course, the shorts on the internet are making a big deal about the fact that Tesla, or Elon, I should say, announced this publicly on the internet. You know, Steve Jobs famously backdated his stock options, and he didn't get any prison time. And here's a CEO of a company announcing his intentions publicly, and you know, they're making a big deal about this. So I don't know. I think there's some cherry picking going on as far as, you know, what makes news and what doesn't. But I'm supportive as long as it keeps the mission going, keeps the company going, keeps the products coming. And if it means that I have to sell shares or transfer them, hey, be it as it will. Ian, I'm sure it's not affecting you too much at this point. I mean, I know that some of your down payments in Tesla stock. Hopefully, won't divest yourself completely.
Yeah, no, I'm riding it out for the moment. I mean, you know, it's still up from where it was even give or take a month ago or so, or something like that. So, yeah, that's fine. And I mean, I not only do I have down payment money, I have a fair chunk of my RRSP in there. I have for years. So, yeah, I watch it closely. But as I said on last week's show, and I don't really think I can add too much to it, I strongly believe this is the right move. I mean, we do know that Elon is a little bit prone to be vindictive, as you say, or maybe a little bit emotional. But when it comes to, I think that's more about how he tweets things or how he, paints things. And even then, I rarely see them unjustified. But, at the core, when it comes to really high level, super important operational decisions, the man is purely driven by logic, like from every standpoint. I mean, he always talks about first principles, right? Take it down to the atom, what matters. And to him, I think this is a very functional thing. Like he feels like they've reached a threshold where this is untenable from the negative publicity, the effect that it has, the morale on the team, on everybody else. It's just a freak show for no good reason. And this is a way out of it that wouldn't compromise, the company's financial ability to operate from certainly, I guess, from the internal analysis they did. So if that's the way it has to be, it has to be. I'd still love to be involved. I trust they're going to figure out a way for a little retail investor like me to stay involved. If they don't, I'd much rather that the company continue the mission and do it in the best way possible. The other thing I just want to add is Elon did at one point tweet something that explained his position as to why he made this public in the way that he did. And I thought it was kind of interesting. He felt that in a lot of cases when these matters are being considered, when their companies are talking about going private, they more or less get, the top investors in the room type of thing to discuss it first. And he wanted everybody on board right away, all as one, from the little guys right up to the top. So take that for what it's worth, but that was his position on it. I think it sort of makes sense. And going back to, like, he really values the small investors who were there from the beginning, and he didn't want this to be a closed door affair. He wanted everybody on board at once.
Yeah. I'll put a link in the video if those of you really want to read it. Yeah, the one thing I like about Elon is that when he writes, he's very concise and he puts things down in good words. I mean, he's a way better writer than I could ever imagine to be. So, yeah, I encourage you to take a look at this article, and I'll put a link here in the video description and the blog post and stuff. So I'll put it in the, for those of you listening on the podcast, I'll put it in the show notes as well, so you guys can take a look at that. Well, it'll be interesting, and I think the other thing too that Tesla did put out is that they said that they've already started an advisory board on this to start talking about this and investigate it. So it looks like they're moving forward. It would not surprise me that they get the majority of shareholder votes on this thing. When that will happen, who knows? But I think I have a pretty good feeling that much like the the Solar City acquisition, that it will be almost unanimous on this thing. So it's a developing story, and as it continues, we'll keep an eye on it. All right, a little bit of a fluff piece tonight. Who has seen the tweet from Tesla about the Performance Model 3 testing in Alaska? Here's the video. There's no audio, but you guys can watch this little thing. Now, of course, it is not snowing in Alaska right now, so this was certainly not filmed this week.
So much fluffy white snow. It's beautiful, man.
Yeah, so this was certainly not filmed this week, most likely back in the wintertime. Now, those of you who are probably saying, whoa, didn't they just show the Performance Model 3 being produced, and how can they get it in Alaska? It's not. No. That was a production car. This is most likely a prototype or a release candidate zooming around. So lots of fun. That's our fluff piece for tonight.
Just keep it going, Trev. Nobody wants to see us. They just want to see that.
All right, I'll let it go for a little bit. I mean, it's a pretty short little clip, but you can find it on Tesla's Twitter feed there to watch that. So
it felt like that's what I was doing in the car. I don't know. It might not have looked.
Well, if there's white stuff down in South Florida, it's definitely not snow.
Yeah, that would be a much more expensive demonstration down your way.
Correct. You're absolutely right.
I will jump in with this one. This is something that really, really made me happy, though, because my one beef, and I've been quite honest about this from day one with Tesla, is up until now, there's never been a vehicle they've built where you could completely deactivate or at least seriously open up the electronic stability control to do such shenanigans. And that's one thing that really bothered me, because one of my all-time favorite things to do with cars is to go out winter rallying. I do what's called navigation, or TSD in the US, rallies here quite frequently in the winter time. And I mean, I've been driving Audi Quattros for more than 20 years, and that's the whole reason to have that car as far as I'm concerned. Everything else is secondary. Yeah, it gets me to work. That's nice. I could ride a bicycle. No, 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 no. It's toboggan time. This is what I want to do with it. And I was pretty convinced initially that, no, they'd follow the pattern. You know, you'll be able to drift it a little. We've seen cars, Model S's can do this. You know, if you start the slip start, you can sort of get it a little sideways, but nothing like what we've seen here with the track mode engaged. So this warms my heart, I must tell you.
Well, I'm definitely going to have to come down to Montreal in the wintertime when we can go down to a track or have some fun in the snow, because if there's anybody I trust...
We're going to take it out on the lake, man. We got some ice racing tracks out here. We're going to go full gonzo sideways.
All right, let's make it happen. Winterlude, you know, in Ottawa, maybe if we have to. I mean, we'll figure it out, but yeah, looking forward to that. That'll be lots of fun. Okay, next little one here. A neat article that Fred Electric put out. The urban supercharging stations have been expanded in New York City. These are the urban ones, the little the black and white ones here. I'll put a picture up. You guys can take a look at it. There it is. Pretty neat little shot. Interesting, they've actually mounted these on the pillars instead of being on the floor. Now, I don't know if all the locations are like this. Anyway, so Tesla put out this little note here. We just expanded our supercharger network across New York City, making Tesla ownership more convenient for those without direct access to charging at home or work. So the new supercharger locations are in the following neighborhoods: Lower East Side, Chinatown, Midtown East, Upper West Side, Williamsburg, and Jamaica. Here's the map of where those pins are. So those of you looking to charge in the New York City area, it's looking really promising. Of course, then there's an updated map, and I'll put it up here. This is all the destination chargers. So it's like, it's crazy. We know for a fact that Tesla is putting a lot of time and effort into expanding the supercharger destination program. So it's looking really promising. Just an anecdote, we just got back from our vacation in Vermont, and it was amazing to see how many destination chargers were everywhere out there. So it was very encouraging. Have absolutely no problems finding charging stations. So, and for those of you who might be listening who have businesses, let me tell you, and we know this for a fact, if your business has a destination charger and we're going to be there for any amount of time, we will pick the business with the charger as opposed to the guy across the street who doesn't. We know this for a fact. So, you know, and that's something I've been talking to one of our city councilors here who's running for mayor. And I had this discussion with him, and I may even go into to city council and talk to them about the situation that if you build it, they will come. We know this program works. We know that people will frequent businesses that have it. I mean, the way I put it is very much like Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is everywhere now. When Wi-Fi first started being deployed into little restaurants and businesses, people would flock to those areas. It worked quite well. But now, I mean, you can't go anywhere without getting Wi-Fi anywhere. So I feel that destination charging level 2 for EV owners is largely going to be the same metric. So,
and I'm with you 100% on that. I mean, we have a lot of people who, you know, we've talked to in the forums and everywhere else are like, charging in certain places is sometimes quite hard to find, especially live in a remote area. And yeah, you can charge in a 110. You can certainly do that.
Oh, that's brutal, though.
Which, I mean, it's brutal for some people, but if you're, visiting family in the upstate part of Georgia or Tennessee or something where it's just hard to find charging stations, that's one thing. But even with the level 2 charging stations that are out there, when you're in your car and you touch the map and find out where charging is, you're like, all right, we're going to go grab a bite to eat or go shopping or something else. You're going to gravitate towards places where you can go charge your car. It only stands to reason, like, while you're there, while you're killing time, just charge your car. And I think as more and more businesses do what you're suggesting, Trevor, like, you're going to find that it's not just about the access, it's also about profitability.
Yes.
You're driving business to your location explicitly because you offer charging. I mean, all of us kind of test when we go into hotels and stuff. We're looking at hotels that offer free breakfast or have a pool for the kids or a game room. Or there's something about the facility that we're looking at to make sure that it has it to say, we're going to go stay there. Regardless of the cost or distance, we'd rather go stay there. To me, the EV network of charging options is no different.
No, I agree with you 100%. I mean, we experienced it ourselves. I mean, when we go to a restaurant, I'm going to go to a place that has a charger. Now, whether I use it or not doesn't matter. The fact is that they have it means that, it's there if I need it. So, all right, next little bit here I want to talk about. Rear-wheel drive Model 3 hits 142 miles per hour in top speed on the Bonneville Salt Flats. This article comes courtesy of Teslarati. I'm going to read the little blurb here. I'm going to put the little video up, and you can watch these guys do this little test run. So the article basically says videos of Stryker's recent runs in Bonneville Salt Flats shows his Model 3 seamlessly accelerating until it approached Tesla's rated 140 miles per hour top speed. One run filmed on August 6th featured the long-range Model 3 accelerating past its top speed, hitting 142 miles per hour before Stryker lifted his foot off the accelerator. In a statement to Teslarati, excuse me, Stryker stated that his Model 3 seemed like it was still capable of going past 142, but he opted to stop there just to be safe. The Model 3 owner also noted that he started the max speed run with 293 miles left in the battery. After hitting 142 miles per hour, his car's range down was 279 miles. So, yeah, not much usage on there. I mean, for daily driving, of course, you're not going to do this, but here's the video, and just keep going. He's hitting about 102. Oh, no, he's decelerating now. Mm-hmm. That's a great shot, by the way, with the sun going down.
It's beautiful. I was just looking at that. It's hypnotizing.
Lots of fun. So,
it's really cool. It's really cool to look at the map in the car, and all of a sudden you see the red triangle near the edge of the salt flats, and all of a sudden there's nothing but huge amounts of white space around the triangle.
I think the fact that Tesla is electronically limiting the speeds on these cars is a little disappointing. I wish in some ways we'd be able to lift that. Of course, until the Roadster comes out, we don't know exactly what these things are probably capable of. But it just goes to show that these cars have pretty good chops. And, there's some articles recently came out, of course, that the battery technology on the Model 3 is completely different. It doesn't suffer from overheating quite as bad as the S and the X2. So it just goes to show that this car is going to have some real chops as far as track mode is concerned and stuff. So.
It also makes you wonder when Michael test drove the car the other day, and we know the car's slated to do 155. Could it break 160? Could it break 165? I mean, we don't really know.
We'll tell you next weekend.
Yeah, I got a funny feeling it would go beyond that. Just my back of the envelope math, if you figure the car's got a drag coefficient of what, 0.23, 0.24? It's in that range, 2.2. I forget what the actual drag coefficient is.
0.22, I think.
Yeah, 0.22. I know their target was 0.21. I don't think they quite got that, but it's a super low number. This car has very little drag. And if you figure that the P3D is putting up 450 horsepower, now up to what RPM is the question. I have a funny feeling it would be RPM limited. It wouldn't be aero drag limited. So this car would probably top out wherever the motors go. I know our friend Sasha Ennis from Mountain Pass Performance
he's already
waiting to get his hands.
again.
Yeah. We need to get some dyno numbers on this to see, you know, how far up the curve. I mean, everyone's sort of familiar with the concept that an electric motor makes, you know, peak torque from 0, but it doesn't do it infinitely. The torque curve actually starts to taper off as it reaches its highest RPM point. So the power will eventually taper off. So depending on the gearing that they put in the car, I think that's going to limit the top speed. But, you know, in a perfect world, I could see no problem passing 170 miles an hour in a P3D.
I'm going to try and ping Sasha tomorrow and see if he can give me any kind of performance numbers at this point, and we'll see what he says. Interesting point. My wife, Beverly, I call her Miss Daisy because I do all the driving. She took the Model X yesterday to a business function for the first time because, of course, our Volkswagen is in the shop. It's another story altogether. Anyway, and she said, I had that thing up to 160 kilometers an hour. I just wanted to see what it could do again. I'm like, you're paying for the tickets, dear, not me.
Yeah, that's expensive in Ontario.
Oh, yeah. I said, don't be doing that too often. Okay, well, moving along here. The next little bit here, I don't know if it's, I think this is a case of making a mountain out of a mole here, but we have a couple of reports, courtesy of Electric here, of some Model 3s losing their bumpers in the rain, which I think is a bit of an erroneous way of putting a headline out there. But there have been a couple of reports, and I'll put a couple of pictures up here, courtesy of the article that came out, of these Model 3s missing the rear bumper. Now, when I say the bumper, I'm not talking about the crash structure. It's strictly the ABS fascia that's missing off the back.
The skin.
Yeah, the rubber skin. So to me, it seems like maybe it was a case of maybe them not being clipped in properly or whatever. I didn't really read the article in its entirety to see whether there was any scraping of the bumpers involved where would force them to come off. But anyway, so of course the internet was all a buzz with Tesla needs to do a recall on this and get it fixed and stuff. I mean, 2 reports. I mean, how many cars they got out now? So yeah, I don't know.
And I also want to add for the record that both cars are located in Florida and New Jersey. Just random thought. And secondly, the Florida car is midnight silver metallic. MSN represent. Just telling you right now.
Oh my, that's a bit much. All right. Well, moving along, we got another one here. I mean, I just threw that little piece out there. Price increases. Now, I want to give a little bit of shout out because I know some of the people on the YouTube comments had mentioned that there was a piece of information that we missed last week, and I'll apologize for that. We just had lots to cover. Of course, we have to talk about the price increases on the dual motor and the color options as of August 2nd on the Model 3. So we'll get you guys to dive in a little bit, of course. Model 3, when it was first announced, the all-wheel drive option was originally $5,000, and they dropped it to $4,000. Now it's back up to $5,000. And, of course, they put some price increases across the board on all the colors, of course, except for black. And my personal opinion about this is that it's getting tougher and tougher for some people to maybe swallow the fact that we're looking at, you know, getting that fabled $35,000 car. I mean, at the bottom of the hour, not very many people buy a base model of anything out there. But these price increases on anything other than black makes me feel that those of you who are out there are really waiting for that fabled $35,000 car, meaning I'm not spending any more than a car. We're going to see a lot of black Model 3s on the streets. which is yeah, I don't know. It's hard to justify. I know that Tesla is increasing the prices because they can and because they're pushing the limits as far as they can, as far as how much money they can extract out of a customer at the given time. But at the same token, it feels in a lot of ways that I feel like we're being a little bit nickel and dimed here on the colors, because if you look at a competing car, I mean, I think the most expensive metallic color options might be on Mercedes or BMW, and we're only talking $750 US. So I think it's a little bit of price gouging on the colors, in my opinion. I don't think there's any justification from a cost manufacturing or yeah, from the cost of actually painting it that the prices have raised. It's just it just strikes me as profiteering.
Yeah, I think price-wise, Trev, you're right. They're on the high side of what
way too high.
normal.
Way too high.
Yeah, yeah. As far as a typical surplus would be for a special color, that's definitely on the high side. I don't really have a problem with the dual motor pricing. Like, I know a lot of people were. It goes back to the original story that when people were asking Elon, well, is the dual motor 3 going to be, you know, the option less than an S?
He said less.
He said less. Yeah. Okay. So then when it came out at the exact same price at 5,000 US, everybody's up in arms. Well, you said it was going to be less. Well, it's not. Okay. So they were wrong on that. I mean, they did promise it would be less, but I mean, what if it had been $100 less? Would that have been legitimate at that point? I don't know. I think when you look at what the car delivers, when you get the dual motor in terms of the extra traction, the extra performance, and all that, I don't think that's bad. I think it's one of those things where you can justify and say, well, yeah, adding a front motor to an S or to a 3 is probably not that big a difference at the cost level at the factory. So maybe at some point in the future, when they really start doing huge volumes, they'll look at these numbers again and readjust them. But for now, I think they got to keep the margins up. I mean, that's at least to the end of this year. That's probably goal number 1. So that's where we're at.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you. I mean, I don't have a problem with the price of all-wheel drive. Let's face it. I mean, you know, Tesla's pretty much a creature of habit when it comes to pricing options on their cars. But, I mean, they also did a price increase on the S and the X as far as the colors are concerned, too. So, I don't know. I just have a problem with the color pricing. I think it's out of whack. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be that high. I mean, you know, the previous price, you know, was even pushing it, but, you know, it's a little bit easier to swallow. But I just, like I said, I just feel that once they get around to doing this $35,000 car, that a lot of people are going to go, geez, I'm really stretching my budget as it is right now, and I really don't want black. What are my options? Well, not only you have to pay extra for the color, but you got to take into account that you have some delivery fees you got to pay for. You can't get around that. You know, there's a handful of fees and stuff. So I don't know. I just I just find it disappointing.
Trev, I would say, you know, I don't know if we can make the correlation, but this is one of those things that points back to maybe why they'd be better off as a private company. Elon mentioned, you know, as a public company, they're sometimes forced to make poor short-term decisions when really the goal is the long-term. This could be that. There's absolutely so much pressure on them to make profit that if the volumes are there and they can sell it and they can make the money, you can't fault them in a sense. I think they raised the delivery fee as well. If I'm not mistaken, I think it went from 1,000 to 1,200 US. I could be wrong on that, so don't quote me if I'm wrong there.
I'll look it up.
The destination and document fee was $1,000, whereas the Model S and Model X were $1,200, and then the Model 3s were recently increased to match that of S and X. So it's a combined,
so it's combined.
1,200.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it could be a little bit of that. I mean, you also watch the S and the X over time. The prices go up and they go down, and they go up and they go down. So I wouldn't say this is the final price. You know, for anyone who's waiting. It could go higher. It could go lower. New features could be standard down the road. This is just the way it goes. You know, once the car is right for you and ready, you kind of gotta jump in with both feet and stop looking at it.
Well, in general, I have to remember the pricing trends of cars over the years has always been on the upward swing. It's never been like, okay, 2015 is this much, and then the 2016 comes down a couple $1,000. It generally doesn't work like that. I mean, you know, our fathers bought cars back in the 70s, and they cost $3,500. I mean, you can't buy a car for $3,500 anymore. I just feel that Tesla seems to be... Yeah, I think in some ways, Michael, you have a point. I mean, if they weren't a public company, that they would be a little bit more relaxed as far as how they could spread those margins a little bit. Yes, there's a lot of pressure. I mean, it's undeniable. They have a lot of pressure right now to make money for the third and fourth quarter. I get that. I hope that it's not setting a precedent in such a way that we're only going to do this for the short term so we can show everybody and then take it away down the road, and then, of course, you upset a lot of customers along the way. I don't know. I just don't like price increases in general on stuff like that. It's just disheartening.
I don't think anybody does, Trev. I don't think that's unusual.
No. Okay, well, the last little bit I want to talk about tonight is Model 3 Autopilot performs best of 5 cars in the IIHS lane keeping tests. This is the article comes from Forbes. And so the IIHS, which is the that's the insurance board. That's not NHTSA. That's the car guys there. This is the insurance board. Sorry, acronyms. I can't stand acronyms. You know, remember back in the 90s?
Insurance Institute for Highway
Safety. Thank you very much. The only acronym I really remember all that much was in the 90s called, remember the slot on the laptops was called PCMCIA? People can't remember computer industry acronyms? That's what I called it anyways.
SDSI?
Yeah. Anyhow, so they did a test across a set of 36 test runs on both hills and curves. The Model 3 drove outside of its lane only once, while the E-Class, that's the Mercedes, drove outside of its lane 12 times. The Model S 14 times, the S90 18 times, that would be the Volvo, and the 5 Series, which is the BMW, performed the worst at 33 times. The difference in performance between the Tesla Model 3 and the Model S is particularly striking, as the Model 3 performs significantly better than the Model S, even though both models come from the same manufacturer. Now, one thing I want to point out here is that nowhere in the article did they mention which MCU. No, I guess the MCU doesn't matter because Autopilot's Autopilot, right? So they're using the same computer system. So I don't know. I mean, what could be causing this difference in this disparity? I'd be curious to see what their testing regimen was like and what the actual cars were.
That might be part of it. Might be part of it is what kind of hardware for Autopilot was in the 2 vehicles they tested. We know the Model 3 is using the newest version of Autopilot, which is 2.5. And then you have the Model S, which could have had something older than that. But even then, it's also possible the weight of the cars and how it handles curves could be different.
I mean, there's a lot of factors here.
And there's so many factors. But we do know that for a lot of people who've had a chance to test drive the Model 3 and maybe either own or test driven the Model S previously, we know the Model 3 is a more nimble car. And again, a lot of that is just because it's just lighter by over 1,000 pounds.
Yeah, I'd be curious to find out what exactly they did the test. I mean, your point about Autopilot 1, I mean, they didn't specify exactly which Model S they used. They could have used the Autopilot version 1 car. We know the Model 3, you don't have a choice. It is, at least the 2.5 technology. So, yeah.
I'll add,
go ahead, Michael.
In related but unrelated news, With version 2018.28.x, I've had two of them already. Merging legitimately works with Autopilot. It's not an accidental, the person moves out of the lane at the right time and you make it. The car absolutely merges. You can watch it on the screen, picking up the car as they slowly merge in safely. I'm definitely going to do a video on it.
Yes, please.
Because it's really impressive, and it wasn't even listed in release notes, and it's there, and it merges well now. So I know not exactly related, but I thought if we're talking Autopilot, that's good news to share.
Any other comments you guys want to make on the Autopilot before I add one more article to the tonight's show?
One thing I do want to add is so here in Florida, part of I-95 that I commute on does have double white lines to separate the HOV lane. For those of you that know what HOV is, the HOV lane separate from the traffic to its right. And so oftentimes my Autopilot has a hard time differentiating where the left end of the lane is if I'm in that second lane. It doesn't know, is it the outer line that really borders the HOV lane, or is it the other white line that's actually bordering the line that I'm in? And Florida is known for eroding the asphalt rather quickly. The paint can tend to fade. So that being said, we know Autopilot needs to have clear painted marks to know. But even where there are two distinct white lines, sometimes it's trying to have a hard time center the vehicle because it doesn't know which lane or where the lane boundary is. So I'm curious to know if other people have had that problem. I'm not sure if Michael, if you had it either, but even Trev, I'm not sure if in Canada you've had that problem too with your Model X. But it's something that I think is interesting that the camera still has a hard time differentiating that.
The only time I've noticed I've had some issues with Autopilot has to do with it getting. I've had a couple occasions where it got confused when I was in the right-handmost lane and there was an exit coming up. Prior to, I think it was at least the last update, the only other big one that I got was in March, that it would gradually just take the exit. Now it knows. It just seems to know, okay, this is an exit. You're not intending on taking the exit. And it just, you can feel it. Not even, like before it would hesitate, it would go into the lane and then it would come back. Now it's just like, doesn't even exist. I just keep going.
And you made a video about that. I think we did it before and after before your.
I did. That was back in March. But since then, I've had another update, and that was the one that really did the off ramps really well. But even since then, I've noticed that it's improved, especially when it comes to exits and stuff. Now it's just like I did a test the other day. It's like, okay, what's this thing going to do? Because you could clearly see that the lane was going this way, and the other lanes were. I really should have recorded it, but it just went. I know where you're going, dude. I'm not gonna deviate. So, yeah, it was quite. I was very impressed with that. I went, wow. I mean, I've never seen that before. Wow. Yeah, I got to put that soundbite in there, right?
I'll say one other last Autopilot thing. I put it on Twitter. I didn't put it on YouTube. It was like 15 seconds long, maybe 20 seconds. But in an absolute low visibility downpour, the car was phenomenal.
Yeah,
I mean,
you've done several of those tweets I've seen.
Yeah, I'm looking, and I think that the camera makes it seem better than it is. I can't tell where the lane lines are looking, and the car is spot on. It's not waving back and forth at all. It's literally dead straight. The auto wipers are great too. At high speed rain,
right?
Yeah. Lower speed, they chatter. Still.
Yeah, of course they freak out.
Those still have a little way to go, but amazing.
I've had two instances. I've used my car in the pouring rain and couldn't see, but Autopilot was just like it was just like it saw through the rain, no problem. The other instance, I was coming home a few months ago, and it was a lot of fog, and performed admirably in the fog. So I was very impressed with that. So they're doing something in there in the software.
Now, for those of you guys who are listening to this podcast, notice the tone we're using. It's not anger. It's not resentment. It's not disappointment. It's just we're happy. We're loving the cars. We're just saying, you know what? It's like when you have your significant other, you love them for their flaws and all. You know they're not perfect, but you love them more than anything else in the world. So we know that, you know, and Trevor has been the advocate. He's been our vocal leader for a long time. There is no perfect car. You could love your Volvo, BMW, Audi, Range Rover, Toyota. It doesn't matter. You love your car. That's wonderful. We love our cars too. We know there's ways that they can become better. Elon and the company is great at listening to owners like us to say, listen, here are some recommendations. I mean, I remember there was a photograph that Michael tweeted earlier this week where he submitted a bug. I think it was this week or last week. Submitted a bug report through the voice command, and those are things that are just. It's more like, hey guys, we're seeing this. We're not sure if you do, but if you can, hey, my camera looks like it's actually got in the movie Carrie. Can you please just fix this for me? And then within a matter of time, it's fixed. So it's, again, we're not upset. We love the cars. It's just like I said, you hear us. We're just like, oh, I've noticed this. I noticed this. Just like you wake up in the morning going, oh, I have a zit on my forehead. But look at Michael this week. There's no zit on his forehead. He looks fine. See, it's good. Okay.
Nice.
We get to take care of. It's fine.
I love my car, warts and all. Actually, as a parting thing, I just want to put this out there, and I hate to put you on the spot here, Michael, but I know before we started the podcast tonight, we were talking about your service experience, because I have never experienced mobile service. I just take mine down to the local service shop. But you were saying some interesting things because you've had two instances. Of course, I'm curious to ask you about your trunk situation with your new Seal. And of course, if you don't want to talk about, because you're going to put something in a video, that's perfectly fine. But you're also mentioning something about the LED lights. So just jump in here and just tell us a little bit about what you were saying earlier.
Yeah, I think Eric said it really well. No car is going to be perfect. And certainly I've had a couple of issues here and there. But it's how you handle the issues that's almost more important than anything else. My specific mobile service ranger, and I don't want to say his name, I don't want to get him in trouble, but I've already expressed to him how much I appreciate him. He's phenomenal. I noticed, I pulled into a parking spot this morning and noticed one of the, I call it an eyebrow or an eyelid, the parking light, the driver's side of my car. The signature light.
Yeah,
there you go.
That's what they call it.
I like it.
Yeah.
I noticed it was out. Saw a thread on the forum suggesting that this isn't uncommon, actually. They either burn out or potentially they shift. So the light's still on, but it's just not in the right spot anymore. Anyway, I texted him this morning. He said he'd order a headlight for me right away. He called me back at, I think it was like 7 o'clock at night, certainly after hours. And he said, all right, headlight order is in, should be in soon. And by the way, you've got two other items on the car that I can service for you remotely. They're much easier to do if you bring them in so I can get the car on the lift. And to take it a step further, he said, and by the way, I'll come to your office, pick up the car, bring it in, work on it, and bring it back to you. I mean, who else does that? It's just, it's phenomenal. So you take a little issue, my headlight's got a tiny issue, and service is going to come to me, pick up the car, take it in, or, you know, as in other cases, work on it in the parking lot of my office. I just can't say enough good things. The trunk seal, I can't share feedback yet because I haven't tested it yet. Okay. Shame on me.
That's fair. That's fair.
Performance car. But I'm going to test it out to see if it keeps the water out, and I'll definitely do a video on that.
Cool.
Should do that this weekend.
Yeah, we're all looking forward to finding out about that, because that was something that was discussed, of course, since you're, you know, since you did the video and stuff. And I'm sure you're not the only one that's suffering from this. So, or suffering may or may not be the right word, because it doesn't happen all the time, but it is, you know, it is an issue, and I hope that Tesla corrects it. Any parting thoughts before we sign off for tonight, guys? Anything else that you want to throw in?
I'd like to throw one on.
Sure.
Just the last. It's almost a breaking news today kind of story, Trev, and I'd like to get your input on it. Is it sounds like Tesla Canada is going to go after the Ontario government for pushing them out of the last days of the rebate program.
Yes. So let's leave that as a parting thought. So John Dixon, who is the president of the Tesla Ontario Tesla Owners Club, finally got confirmation, official confirmation, that Tesla Canada has filed suit with the Ontario government over the misleading or the discriminatory action that the government took against Tesla when they shut down the cap and trade program, which of course funds the EHIP rebate program. The wording specifically said that dealers that had inventory could still submit paperwork and get rebates until September 10th. But they said that they had to have inventory on lots, and of course Tesla doesn't have that. And of course, there was also another person in cabinet who also specifically said on Twitter or in a public forum, and specifically singled out Tesla, saying except for Tesla. So there is definitely some discriminatory action on there. So Tesla has taken it to task. We've known for some time that they were upset about this thing, and they rightly should be. And they're seeking, what's the word I'm looking for? A quick action on this. They want it reviewed as soon as possible. Legislation, of course, right now is out for the summer, so there's no chance of getting the rebates reinstated at this point. What they're looking for, I'm probably sure at this point, is some kind of damages. What they do with that and how they do any kind of restitution, I have no idea. But anyways, we want to put it out there, and it's a story that we will be following to see what happens at this point. So, thank you very much for putting that out there. And
I want to make it clear, I support my Ontario brothers. I'm wearing my Ontario Electric Vehicle Society shirt. Fight the power, people. Fight the power.
Fight the man. Fight the man. Fight the man. All right. Well, having said that, I want to sign off, guys. Eric, let's start with you. Where can people find you on the internet if they want to chit-chat with you?
Absolutely. You guys can find me on Twitter with the handle ECFix. That's ECFIX.
Great. Thank you very much. Ian, let's do you second tonight. We'll leave Michael as last just for mixing it up a little bit. Where can people find you?
All right. Well, on Twitter, at IanPavelko.com. Pavelko is the last name. At the Tesla Model 3 Owners Club Forum, you can find me as the Mad Hungarian. And you can also find me at teespring.com if you're interested. I have a line of my Evolve line shirts, which I sell to raise money for different electric vehicle organizations. And you just look at teespring.com, Mad Hungarian or Evolveware, you will find the line of shirts.
And as usual, we will put a link in the show description and the video description so you can check out his website. And last but not least, Michael, where can people find you, of course, on the internet and YouTube?
Cool. Ian just reminded me, I want to make sure everyone knows, I do wash the shirt that I got from Ian before each video. Seems like I wear it in every video now.
That doesn't matter. As long as you wear it, Michael, that's what matters.
There you go. No, seriously, though. You can find me on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at TeslaTunity, and of course on the Model 3 Owners Club as SoFla Model 3.
Well, we want to thank everybody for your contributions as usual, and we'll sign off with that. My name is Trevor Page. You can find me on Twitter. The handle's at Model 3 Owners. Don't forget to check out our forum at model3ownersclub.com. If you want to share, like, and subscribe our YouTube channel, we really appreciate it. It gets some nice features in there. And last but not least, I want to say thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. They are the people that make this show possible. So if you feel like contributing and you'd like to support the channel, I encourage you to check out our Patreon page. You can find that at patreon.com/Model3ownersclub. Well, that's it for tonight, folks, and we will catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching and listening, and we'll see you later.